Welcome to the Talk and Chatter experience powered by Gasoline Alley Harley Davidson. Today's guest is currently crowned American flat track champion, James Rispoli. Welcome, mate.
Hey, thank you. Thank you very much.
And you're obviously flat track champion in production twins. How does it feel?
Yeah, it feels really good. You know, like I raced in dirt track about 10 years ago, and I've only done like maybe a handful of races in between my start of my road race career until now. So to be able to come back and then only do one season and then win a championship, even though it's the production twins, it's still a huge accomplishment because I didn't win the championship when I left the dirt track. So this is my first flat track championship.
Wow.
So I'm pretty excited to be able to do that and to do it on a Harley Davidson. You know, they haven't won really anything in 5 years. And that's, you know, not disrespectful. Just they've, you know, the new wave of racing, the XR is dead and the Indian's so good. And then Harley's been struggling to kind of make their motorcycle work. So for us to be able to, you know, create some hope there and to be able to win and be competitive and then win championship is just actually been pretty huge.
It's been a pretty dry spell considering the successful history. It's sort of been a pretty dry spell for Harley Davidson, hasn't it?
Oh, yeah. And especially because, I mean, nobody forgets, but they dominated for how many years? And then there's been a switch, but there's like a switch where people are like, it's like gone too long, and it's only been 5 years, but it's long enough where Harley's like, dude, this is way too long, you know? And it's the thing is not so good is because the series is growing so much that it's like they want to be competitive. So it's been tough, you know. Indian created a motorcycle that's pretty phenomenal, and it seems like, you know, the factory really isn't established above the other guys. It's like they are, but it's the bikes are just that good that anybody on an Indian has really got a shot at winning the race. And that's what's kind of makes everything so hard.
So when you're racing against, say, the FTR 750, you're pushing to the limit, basically, hey, at all times to keep up with that motorcycle. Would that be correct in saying?
Yeah, so in the production class, we don't race against Indians. That's why I think maybe it was a little bit, you know, easier, I guess, I don't want to say easier because the class is tough in itself. You know, it's a little disrespectful, but the thing is the Indian definitely has an advantage. I mean, if you look at the Super Twins class, I mean, the top 8 in the championship were Indians. So it's pretty safe to say it's the dominant motorcycle right now. In production, they're pretty equal. Yamaha, Cowie, Harley, you know, they're all pretty there. They've all won a race in production, and it's definitely a little bit more of a race. Whereas it's just in Super Twins, it's all Indian. So that the goal is to hopefully to change that and to be able to develop the Harley a little bit more.
Your first day at Harley, like factory Harley, how does it feel? What is it? What's it like? What's the first day when you come back? What's it? You've been overseas racing prior. What's it feel like coming back to, you know, Vance and Hines Harley Davidson?
So I rode last year I came back and I was under the Black Hills banner under the Vance and Hines like umbrella. So it was a kind of a multitude. And then this year I rode for latest Harley Davidson. So it was we ended up running Vance and Hines you know, purchased motorcycles and ran under the latest motors, a big dealership in Oregon. So we were separated this year. So I actually didn't ride for Vance and Hines. I rode for a private team. We were a privateer effort, and we just ended up putting together a kind of a dream team together. And myself, Joe Kopp, Mike, who's doing all of our electronics, engine stuff, and of George Latest, who was previously in road racing, superbike racing in America for the last 10 years. So we kind of put this dream team together, and then we kind of went out racing, and we were kind of I would say you had Vance and Hines Super Twins, and then you had Latest, who was kind of supported, you know, pretty well by Vance and Hines, but we were our own entity. So to be able to do that, to be honest, it was good because it was, you know, if you want to touch on that, it was kind of like I had a chip on my shoulder a little bit because I didn't get the factory seat. So I was a little bit like bummed. But in the end, it worked out better that I actually rode for Latest and I was able to win a championship in, 7 races and be on the podium all the time and all that jazz.
It's a from an Australian perspective, it's really cool to hear you say that, because looking at it from here, like I knew you were part of the Latest team, but from our side of it, you look at this and I just thought you were part of Vance and Hines. Like we're a long way from where you are. So yeah, that's interesting to find out.
Yeah, it's because so for contingency, we have to run the identical, paint and decals and stuff like that. And Vance and Hines gave us a good amount of support this year. In the beginning of the year, it was a little bit, we were doing our own development. And then after like round 2 or 3, they stepped right up and was like, listen, you've got a great shot. Keep Harley Davidson at the front of this thing, especially after Indy when I won by 12 seconds. And so they instantly kind of put together a package for us where we blew up an Indy and they threw an engine in because they were right down the road and things like that. And that was all just a part of, winning a championship for Harley Davidson, because it does everybody well. Yeah. So, but yeah, I could totally see if you just look at my Instagram, it doesn't look like I ride for Latest. It looks like I ride for, the factory. The bikes look identical. They're, my leathers are pretty cool and they look pretty good, but they don't look, the official, a little bit more pizzazz, with a little bit of chrome zebra and stuff like that. But it's always been a dream of mine to ride for the factory, but we'll have to see if it comes true.
For sure. Let's take it back to the start. Who is James Rispoli?
Yeah. So James Rispoli is kind of I don't know how we kind of present that. I'm a bit of a wild man, but also have, I think I'm a thinker with a bit of a wild side to myself. I love racing motorcycles, anything on 2 wheels. It could be bicycles, motorcycles, even cars, like anything we can race, I'm down to race. I love having fun. I love business. I love creating content. I love a big passion of mine when I was in England, when I had this kid, Will Hussey, Quiff, we called him, and we started creating all these little videos and cool and kind of taking the motocross theme into road racing. And I literally took what I did in road racing into dirt track. And they had it before, but not to the extent of what we were able to do this year. And so I think there's just a multitude of things. I love business. I love doing deals. I love connecting people, and I just think it's just, a bit of a chameleon, I guess.
Yeah. It's pretty cool to see. And for me, it's the first time I've seen someone go to flat track and put my job's video production, to put the effort into content that you have.
Yeah, so it's been tough. It's been real tough. It's like, especially in dirt track, you got 4 laps, you've got heat, you've got a main, everything. It's not like road racing. There's 3 days. There's 45-minute sessions. You can kind of preempt. Hey, 1 lap, I need to duff a lap and actually get through this corner for the camera. Dirt track, it's. Dude, you got to go out and try to win every session, every heat, every main. So there's no real, and it's like, you don't get the shot. And like some of the clay tracks kind of stink for shooting content. But yeah, that was a huge thing for me. Motocross has killed it with it. You can get super close. That's the one thing I love about dirt track is you can get super close to it. And I just posted a clip today on my LinkedIn or recently on my Instagram of the one that's super close with that you can actually see the tread, you can see the tires, warping and things like that in the slow-mo. And I think that's super cool how the technology's come to where we can see that stuff. And my huge thing was to just try to get behind the scenes as well. These little YouTube videos, even though they're not getting massive views, it's really somewhere where we can start to create this is what it looks like behind the scenes, and I've got the big reason we did this was to create a doc. So the whole thing is I've got a doc and created in 2 months during this time of the entire season. The highs, the lows. I've got Corey Texter, the big rival, Ryan Barnes. I've got Michael Locke, Briar Bauman, who's a Super Twins champ, Shayna Texter, the most successful, singles rider. So I've got all these people helping me create the story, not of just it's my season and my story, but we want to try to build, dirt track and flat track to just a little bit bigger bubble,
It's really cool to see. I actually listened to you on Tank Slapping this morning with Corey.
Yeah, so, that was good. That was good.
It was awesome. It was really cool to listen to. It seems like he's had a good rivalry too. Like, to be able to talk at this time of the season, after this part of the season, it's pretty cool.
Yeah, I mean, there's a couple tasty questions in there. I think I think
just towards the end.
Yeah, it was definitely the good thing about Corey is even though I think during the middle of this season we didn't speak to each other a lot, even though we were respectful after every race, and he was doing this and then this and this, and I was kind of more along like this and up and then kind of down to a more flatter. I didn't really have any lows, and that's kind of how I won the championships. I didn't have any lows. I kind of was just flatlined. If it was like, and he kind of had like two lows, where he was like pretty far back, and he went through, 2 or 3 races where he was kind of in his dumps, like where he just didn't quite have it, and then he would fire straight back, and that's what I was so impressed with him about. But during the middle of the season, it was kind of weird because we didn't really have a rivalry because I think we're both older, and there was no real like I hate you, but it was still like, man, like, dude, you're not taking this, away from me. And I think he kind of stepped up, I stepped up, and I'm just stoked we were able to like you said, kind of at the end of it, the rivalry was so good and so intense, but at the end of it, we're like, dude, that was sick. Let's do it again next year. You know what I mean? Like, it was. I
do 100%. And sitting there listening to you guys talk about this morning was pretty cool.
Yeah, it was interesting. It was a tough season. It was definitely tough. Every time I thought I had it, he would strike back, and that was kind of that was interesting. Like I said, after Williams Grove, I thought he was done. Like I thought I had him over. And then after I did it at Atlanta again, I thought it was done. And then he'd fire back at Charlotte, and it was like, I had 48 points, went down to 38, and I'm like, and then I was given a little bit of a gift at Charlotte when we had the rain out day 2, and then it was kind of game over. But I mean, if you would have done the same thing, it would have been 28, and I still had a huge margin, but still, it wouldn't have changed anything if you did the identical season, now where I got 4th behind him. But at the same time, you would have put that'd have been the maximum points anybody's taken from me during the entire season in 2 rounds.
Wow, that's pretty scary, isn't it, when you look at it like that?
So, and everybody was like, 50 points, you have a hand on the championship. And I'm like, yeah, we've got kind of a hand, but I'm like, with the double weekends, if we blew up, we got a 0 is 25. Like now we have 25 or 24 or whatever. And then it's like, if we have a mistake, I mean, dude, that thing's chopped. Like if we have a double 0 and he wins both, I mean, we lose. We don't have the championship lead anymore. And I mean, that's the scary part about the double weekends and having so much points available in dirt track, where our new rules package, where if you like burn a clutch out in the semi, you don't make the main. It's just that simple. So it's kind of like, it was testy.
Yeah, it's got to be. And there's a lot on the line at that point too. That's a huge risk.
Yeah, I mean, and it kind of was weird because after Atlanta, I was still winning, and then I didn't win at Charlotte, and then I didn't win the rest of the year. And I was fast enough to win, but, definitely day 1 of Daytona, I had speed to win the race, but I just sat behind, and day 2, I got tangled up with Johnny Lewis. So it was like, it's kind of stung a little bit that I couldn't win at the end of the year, but I mean, at the end of the day, it doesn't matter. But
wins are wins, but consistency wins championships at the end of the day, doesn't it?
Look at like Mir in MotoGP. Dude hasn't won a race all year.
Yeah. Who's going to win it this year? Who is going to win it?
I don't know, man. The thing is, we go to tracks where you're talking to MotoGP.
Yep.
Yeah, we go to tracks where tire life is crucial. Like you go to Valencia where it could be cold, so that could help the Suzuki. It also helps the Yamaha, and then you go to a new track, Portimao. I don't know if there's another race in between. I think is there 3 races left.
There's 3 left. So there's this weekend, and then 2 others. So, but Valencia and Portimao finishes it, doesn't it? This time.
Valencia and Portimao. So, to be honest, I think the Suzuki's got the upper hand at the moment because it's so good late in the race, you know, and especially Valencia has been known to have, tire issues, you know, like they've always, because it's always colder, you know, so it's always like trying to find good tire temp. So I don't know. I've kind of have my hand a little bit on Mir at the moment. You know, I think he's done a very good job of clawing back the championship, and he hasn't really let up. If you at Aragon last weekend, he didn't let up, even though he was in a position. And I feel like maybe because he hasn't won yet, he still has like this little bit of drive that, you know, I don't know. I think like he's like, I want to win. So he's not thinking about the championship. He's thinking about, you know, I just want to win a race. And I think that helps him get through the pressure of championship.
I agree with that 100%. And what I also like about him is he was like the second fiddle teammate to Rins at the start, right? And then all of a sudden he's really clawed back, and it's sort of the tables are turned a bit. It's really cool to see that environment sort of has changed a bit.
It's weird because Rins, like, I don't understand. He's like one of the fastest guys on the track, but he just makes these little mistakes. Like leading a race, he crashes, or in a podium and he crashes. I don't understand. Like I've never rode a MotoGP bike, so I can't really comment on how those mistakes happen. It definitely seems like the tires give you so much feedback that you always have it and then you don't have it. Like these crashes happen, like they go in and it's like it's like they just go in and crash. Like they don't like, and it's like, how did that even happen? Like it doesn't make any sense. So yeah, it's not like on a Pirelli, you can feel like a tire squishing underneath you. A Dunlop, you know, is so stiff that you don't really feel it squash, but you know you're going to crash more or less. Yep. It seems like they don't ever know they're going to crash. It's like they're just, nope, I don't have it.
On, gone. And that's the thing. Like a lot of these like really vicious, like we've had in the modern era of electronics, some of the most vicious crashes this year.
Huge. So well, Bradley Smith.
Yeah,
I'm super good friends with him. And at Le Mans when he was killing it in the rain. And I guess it was down to, from what I hear, is like a blind spot in the electronics. You know, it's because they just don't have enough data in the wet to be able to understand that the point from being too, you know, having so much electronic to having none. You know what I mean? Like I don't know the exact terminology, but it's like, it's almost like if you watch it, it was like, and it's just like gone.
And it just ejects you.
Yeah, exactly. And I think it's just either having too much TC or not having enough, and you just can't blend it enough.
He's one guy I feel extremely sorry for, to be honest. Bradley Smith. He's had a rough trot.
Dude, me and him, we've kind of talked a lot, you know, like he's one of the guys who really helped me when I first came to Europe, especially in England. You know, he was somebody that I met through when he would come to America to race in Moto2 and things. And when I did my wild card at Indy, he was like down in my pit the whole time, you know, helping me. Wow. And when I went to England, he was like a huge supporter and helped me with so much over the years. And we still talk, you know, and just, he's a great business guy and things like that. And I do feel for him on the fact that I feel like even when he was like top at Tech 3, you know, finished 5th in the world championship, it's like they never gave him that, you know, like star, you know, and I don't know what it is, but sometimes it's like we kind of have it aligned a little bit like on that, you know, where it's like, what do you have to do to kind of just get it? You know what I mean? It's like they always like, but I also love it because he's still there. they thought after Tech 3 he was going to be in and out. Bradley Smith is still in MotoGP, and nobody thought that was going to be there. And it's kind of like my career, you know, nobody really thought I was going to be in racing for as long as I am. You know, I'm nearly 30 years old, and I've only raced a motorcycle for a living. So, you know, at the end of the day, who's laughing kind of deal, I guess. Like, so I guess that's really his push to keep racing and whatnot. So, I just wish, like, you know, it just stinks because you can only see, the hard part is you only see the end of every session, the list. And we all know that. It's just like, and if you're at the bottom of the barrel, you never really get talked about. And it's same in racing. That's why we got to be on competitive bikes, because it doesn't matter how big you are. Valentino Rossi at the bottom of the barrel, still you're not really going to talk about them. You're just going to talk about how bad they're doing. And it's the hardest thing about being a professional athlete.
The racer has to live by the list, don't they? It's all about the list. If you're not at the top of the list, you're nowhere at that point.
Exactly. And it's like you're only the famous saying, you're only as good as your last race. You're only as good as your last result or whatever. And anything racing it's like the worst thing. But if you take that, it's only as good as your last sale. You know, if you're a sales guy, you know, if you sell houses or whatever, you're a deal maker, you know, it's really just takes that into life, you know, like there's nothing really that you can't, you know, you always have to one up. Like you got to one up. If you want to, you know, make it, you got to just continue to one up yourself.
You can't just hold on. Tell me this, when did you, like I heard tank slapping. So for people that haven't heard that, you had a pretty long 50s career.
Yeah.
And then obviously moved through. What happened after that? How did that all come ahead?
So, yeah, I had a pretty insane 50 career. Like you heard in there, people here haven't heard. I started off on a JR50. You know, I wasn't a P-dub guy. I was a JR guy, you know, so I had the little gear shifter. We used to just go to Corey's, and I used just to ride around with my brother. He had an XR80, and we used to just kind of cruise around, you know, like goofy helmets and just clothes, like the whole nine. So, and then it's really because my dad was such a motorhead. You know, he loved motorcycles. He grew up in Brooklyn, New York, so you can imagine how there's just not that there. And they used to have a few OSAs and stuff like that. So my dad's friend, Bruce Leskow, one of my best friends, Brent Leskow, were the same age, and we lived next to each other. So they used to go, and my dad's friend was like, "Hey, you should come to Jolly Roger." That was the first race. And so I went on my JR, went up backwards around the track. Like I had no idea what I was doing, you know, like it was like super scary and whatnot. I got dead last. My dad's friend, Bruce, gave me a trophy because I was the only person that didn't get one. But I loved it. So I just rode up and down my driveway. We had a pretty big driveway in New Hampshire, but it was just up and down every day. And I was one of those kids, I don't know, like I think I was one of those part of the group that, you know, I didn't really play video games that much unless it was dark, you know? So I was trying to be outside as much as possible. I'd literally get off the bus, and I'd throw my backpack in the yard and then go try to get on my bike. And, you know, there was no, like, I remember, like, I never really asked permission. I would just get on it, and as long as I had a helmet on, I could ride up and down the driveway. And I used to just ride up and down the driveway. And then pretty much I had a Z50. I looped that thing right out as soon as I got a gear shifter, a real one. You know how you can neutral it and then hold the gear up and let it go? Dude, instantly looped that thing out. And then I had a Lem 50, a Polini 50. And I just never was, like, amazing on them. And then I got a 65, and our Bangor, Maine is a big half-mile cushion, first ever, and I was fast. I loved it. And I don't know if it was just the speed, the sliding, or whatnot, but I ended up winning. I won my first race, and then my 60 career kind of took off. You know, I was on a 65. I did really well. I won Grand National Championships, and that was kind of like, but my forte was like these big half miles. I just was super fast at them. I was really bad at the short tracks and TTs, and then we kind of moved up. I went to 80s and amateur nationals at that point. If you look at the pro series now in American Flat Track, you look at Shayna Texter, Breyer, previously Brad Baker, Carver, all the guys that are there, I raced against them in amateur nationals. Like we had Brandon Robinson, Johnny Lewis. We had such a group of people at amateur nationals where it was win your heat, win your semi, go home. And it was like, that was our 85 career. And I remember it was so savage to go to amateur nationals during our time period. And that was really like where everybody got super good. You could see like where people would get good and this and that. And then and then I was like 250s, 450s, just up the amateur career. And then I did, my first year was, I think basic twins on the Aprilia 550 with Chad Coase as a teammate. Yeah. And we ran those stock bikes, and that was kind of a weird deal. And then I did pro singles where I've run against Brad Baker. Yeah, I got second to him in the championship. That was that was like 10 years ago. I think it was 11 years ago now, 2009. And then that's when I went to road racing, and I kind of merged my way into road racing, won my 2 championships, then rode for National Guard, then rode for Michael Jordan. And then when that team collapsed, I then moved to Europe. And then that's when I rode for Keith Flint. I don't know if you know the band, the Prodigy, but I rode for,
I do.
Yeah. So I rode for Keith for 2 years, probably one of the best 2 years. And that's how like my whole UK career really was grasped, because Keith had so many fans, and it's because he got behind me for whatever reason, like ever since we met at Le Mans 24-hour, it was like, I don't know, it was weird. We were just like connected really, really good. And he just offered me the seat right there. It was like, come back to my house, in a week, fly back. We'll do like a little one-off deal. He didn't have a race team at the point. And he's like, I want to put my investment into you. Wow. For whatever reason. I was an American, and he could have picked any. It got so much, like he got so much stick in the beginning because he didn't support a British guy.
Because he was a bit of a track day king, wasn't he, Keith? Like he did a lot of track days, Yeah.
Oh, tons. He had 2, because he was very, very tight with Crescent Suzuki at the time. Now at Crescent Yamaha, or whatever, Patty Yamaha now.
Yep. Michael Denning, wasn't it?
Denning, yep. He had, 3 Suzukis that were like, he had one that was like full spec, the whole 9. Like, it was retarded.
Oh, really?
Yeah, it was retarded. Like, the thing was like, dude, what are you doing, Keith? But he loved it, man. I've never seen somebody with so much. The cool thing about Keith is he would show you how much he loved it. Like, his passion for the sport was immense. I learned so much, like, about how to be the most humble rock star showman you could ever be by Keith. He was one of the biggest stars I've ever seen, one of the most humble. It didn't matter. We could be at a gas station. We could be anywhere. And if somebody was like, hey, Keith, he would stop. Like, no, he could be in his car at a 4-way and someone would say, hey, and he would get out and sign or whatever, take a picture. Like, he would never stop. Like, he would never, ever, like, not sign something. He would never walk away. It was always, like, I remember somebody needed a sweatshirt and he's like, oh, you can have mine. Like, he was that guy, and it's like Bape. Wow. It's like a Bape sweatshirt. You know what I mean? Like, and he's like, it's yours. You can have it. Like, I remember, like, I went to his house once and he's like, hey, you know what I mean? Like, I don't wear any stuff anymore. Like Bape shoes, like all this jackets, clothes. Like, he's like, take whatever you want. Like, it's no big deal. Like, I'm like, it was crazy, but that was him. It was like, what was his was yours. It just didn't matter. Like, there was no, like, he was materialistic in the fact that he had stuff, but he was like, it wasn't like his. He was like, you know what I mean? Literally the first time we met, Jason Pridmore was with me, and he just throws Pridmore his Porsche keys. He's like, hey, just follow me. He's driving this little Panda, like this little Panda, this little car, and he just threw JP, and we're driving his Porsche, and we're like, dude, what is going on right now? And he's just hauling the mail through these country roads, and I'm like, Jay, dude, this is insane. But that was just him. That was Keith. He was insane.
Tell me this: what year were you in the National Guard team? National Guard race team?
Yeah, so I raced National Guard. I won my first championship in 2010. That was on a self-supported deal with sponsorship from National Guard. Then 2011, I rode Celtic, which it wasn't National Guard, but half the team was, with Corey Alexander, my teammate. But we didn't have any branding of National Guard. And then the next year, after I won my second championship, I got the seat for the National Guard team. So I got the full seat for the Michael Jordan National Guard team.
They put a lot of resources in at that time. Hey, I went to Laguna Seca for the GP, and they had the full setup, and yeah, it was kind of interesting. I was at 2011 and 12, I think it was, that we were there. 2011,
yeah, I won that at Laguna. Yeah, at 2011. And then, sorry, maybe it was 2011 and 2012 that I won I don't remember. I won my championship at some point. I don't remember. Anyways, yeah, they did. They had the 2 trucks. They had with the big thing, but it's like American style. You know what I mean? So they had the big awnings off them instead of having the trucks connected. They were, big awnings. We had one. There was one specifically just for hospitality, one for the race team. So, and it was weird because they had. We actually had 3 trucks, to be honest, because there was the 2 Jordan trucks and then the Celtic truck, where the 600 team ran out of, and then they had the hospitality, and then so we had 3 trucks then. That was a pretty strong time in road racing in the States, wasn't it? Yeah, the contingency was huge. It was weird though because it was the crisis hit, but there was so the actual money was gone. So there was no actual salaries going around, big salaries. I mean, I remember it was right before I made my road race career, I was started getting good. That people were getting paid $100,000. Matt Mladen was still at 7 million or something, 6 million or whatever ridiculous number with Suzuki. And it's we get there and it's top guys are making 150,000, 200,000 max. And super sport guys like myself were riding for free with double contingency. And it wasn't the worst thing, but, cause I made decent money that year, but it was you're riding for free, which was insane. How did that happen? How did we get here? Luckily they, it was kind of a tailored, hey, we'll give you double contingency, which is $6,000 a race. If you win, and I ended up winning 8 races, and it was 16 podiums. So I did well, but at the same time, you have to win. And that was kind of the weird deal. And that's kind of how all the sports are now, besides stickball. I mean, everything's becoming so performance based where it's it's kind of good because it's creating the level of, work and who wants it and who can do it and this, but it also kind of is struggle fest because there's not actual real money anymore. You know what I mean? The teams are relying on that as well, which some of the teams just need to get their shit together. Dude, you guys got to find some money too. Because you look at that, Ben Spies, he got out at the right time. Hey, perfect. Right on. I don't understand. Yeah. It's some people just get that gift. And don't get me wrong, Ben Spies is a phenomenal rider. I mean, dude, what he did in World Superbike that year was insane. He was probably one of my idols growing up. I had a poster of him on my wall. I was that's what I want to do. I want to do this, win America, move up and go. I mean, it didn't, formalize in that, way, because Jordan – after I won my second championship, they're one more year 600, and then we want you to be our first rider that we groomed all the way to Superbike. And of my career is always kind of, for whatever reason, goes, team just seems to end when I'm like ready to do it. You know, when I'm ready to move, it's like the team collapses. It's like happened in my entire career. But
yeah, it's such a shame. So at that point, you went back to that's when you went to the UK. Is that right?
yeah,
You went. Jordan. Did Jordan just finish? Like, did he pull out of motorsport, or what happened there?
they relied. So Michael Jordan himself, I think, put a lot of money early on, and then towards the end of it, it was all National Guard. So, and I think they had National Guard maybe pivoted their budget to, you know, something else. You know, I know like the Army is pretty heavily into motocross, supercross, and I know so these guys get for the way it works is they pretty much they get these contracts and then it goes into say an agency and the agency figures out how this is what we want to do to disperse. It's actually quite critical, like how they do it. It's kind of weird because there's like 4 guys that goes through. It's like it gets in, it goes to an agency. The agency then has a guy, and then this guy goes to here, and then there's a guy that needs to talk to the agency. It's like it's kind of a big mess. But yeah, so they kind of pivoted out, and then Jordan was like, you could kind of see that it was going to come to an end a little bit because, you know, I remember in the beginning, you know, MJ was always at the races. And towards the end, he kind of wasn't around at all the races. So you could kind of see like maybe the love for it kind of was gone. Even though they probably had one of their most successful seasons, but the sport was kind of in dire need as well. You know, like there was cuts coming everywhere. Like there was Yamaha, Suzuki, like just cuts everywhere. And you can see it now. I mean, Yoshimura's out, you know, M4 is the guys now. Yep. Factory Yamaha's gone. It's now Attack. It's kind of like the writing's on the wall where there needs to be. They got to go towards a BSB model.
That's a pretty open compared, isn't it? Compared to Moto America. Would I be correct in saying that?
Certain things. So BSB does a phenomenal job of having spec'd out. So they have spec'd electronics. So everything's Motec. Excuse me. Everything's Motec across the board. You're not allowed TC and you're not allowed anti-wheelie. You are allowed engine brake control, EBC. You're allowed to run ignition, like ignition cuts, those kinds of things. You're allowed to run I think you're allowed to run one wheel speed sensor. You're not allowed to run front, so you can't create traction control. I don't know the exact rules, but the biggest thing is the spec ECU is huge, right? Everybody's on a spec ECU. Yes. So what you are allowed though are swing arms. You're allowed factory forks like the Olin's, you know, badass forks. You're allowed, you know, Brembo brakes. So you're allowed kind of a super bike-ish. The biggest holdup is the electronics. But that's the thing that's kind of created this crazy race series is, you know, there's no TC, but they've gotten away with it. Like the swing arms, the way they're building engines and the way they are, they're going faster than what they would be on a TC at the moment. I mean, TC hasn't had development at those tracks, but they're faster on these bikes, which they're 230 horsepower, 235 horsepower super bikes with no TC. And they're like, they don't have that many high sides. Like it's pretty insane. You know what I mean? The tires have been consistent. They're getting better, but they've been consistent being Pirelli, you know, and it's just really engine, swing arms. Like they've made the bikes work. So in America, I think they're still allowed a form of Pirelli. They're allowed full TC. So like when Gerloff or Bobier got off that and got onto the pad of Yamaha, it wasn't much different because they're both built by Yamaha. You know what I mean? Like from what I understand the rules, you know, obviously they're 2 different bikes, but it's a lot easier to go from an American factory Yamaha superbike to a world Yamaha superbike than it is to go from a McCam's Yamaha BSB bike. You go from that bike to the world superbike, and it's a way bigger difference because, and everybody says it's electronics. You know, you gotta go from trusting that you can just hammer it and the electronics are going to hold you. And then coming from the other way, you got to go, ooh, I can't do that. So it's a trust both ways. So I think American Superbike needs to dumb it way down. I think they need to get the cost like they're astronomical. They need to get the cost down in a way where the BMW can compete. You know, the one thing that BSB does so good is they got Cowley, BMW, Yamaha, Suzuki, Ducati. Like everybody can win. They've all, you know what I mean? Everybody's in the top 10. Whereas in America, you got Yamaha and Yamaha. And then you have Suzuki every once in a while where M4's done a decent job, you know, but it's like the Yamaha show. And it's, you got to be able to get the Honda in there and a BMW. Like the bikes are good enough, but like there's just not enough money to develop that.
And to see Suzuki there, it's the only place in the world where Suzuki's competing. Like to win a race, you know, that's huge.
Yoshimura America, you know, that whole program was, I think, one of the best superbike programs, you know, to run ever. I really believe they did a phenomenal job, you know, from the Matt Mladen era to, you know, Ben Spies, you know, to the Haydens. Like, I mean, they had a phenomenal Blake Young. I mean, they had a phenomenal run for a long time. And their team was so good. And I think that's what carried them through, you know, till now was they had, I mean, they had data because they had Morelli all the way up until now. I mean, they had data from back, you know, for whenever, like, you know, 2000, you know, 2005, like they could pull data. And it was like, I mean, the bikes are changed so much, but it's insane to have that much data to understand the motorcycle that much. You know what I mean? Like, and the fact that Yoshimura works hand in hand with Suzuki on performance parts, I mean, that's just the match made in heaven, you know?
Perfect relationship, isn't it?
And I think they just moved into World Endurance I just saw a release with CERT.
Oh, really?
Yeah, so they just did a huge deal. I saw Yoshimura America tagged in it, but I think it's just Yoshimura. Japan are putting a big effort into World Endurance now.
And this is pretty cool to chat to you because you're a fan. You're across it all. Like you're not, like I can talk to you about this one, and you probably know about Australian superbikes too. You're very well across it, which is cool.
Well, me and Josh Waters, good friends, great friends.
Oh, really?
Yeah. So when he was over here racing BSB, him and James Ellison were like two of my best friends, you know, over here. So, you know, James Ellison was best friends with the Waters. And, you know, their families were like always together. And I was, you know, really good friends with James, and James kind of took me under his wing. So me and Josh just always got on. But Josh Waters was a phenomenal rider. Shame that he's still not in BSB, but he was one of the best rain riders I've ever seen, like ever. Crazy.
He's one of our best for Australia. He's one of our best ever.
Was phenomenal. I mean, I saw him because I came late. I didn't see him on the Milwaukee, and James said that when he was his teammate, he used to show up and just smash him into the ground. And I think just the crashes ended up getting to Josh. You know what I mean? Like, because BSB is so brutal and so cutthroat. Like, you start crashing and you just like people just, I don't know, the English, I love them because I have so many friends. But, dude, they are savage. Like, I don't know if it's like that in Australia, but they do not give a shit about your feelings. And there's no, like, they don't hold your hand. They just tell you how bad you suck. And it's hard. Like, I went through a couple real struggle years in BSB just trying to just be like, dude, like, don't say that.
Because Josh had a big one it was either Chuckwalla or Willow Springs. I think that was one of the things that it really hurt him bad as well over in the US. And he had a really big accident there. It might have been Willow Springs, I'm pretty sure.
That would make sense. Willow Springs is fast.
Yeah?
Real fast.
So what was it like going to the UK to race after racing in the US for, you know, between flat track and a couple of seasons of super stock or 600? What was it like?
Scary. Like, I went over 2 bags. I was like kind of just a kid in a candy store. You know, I was like super nervous because I didn't know anything about Europe. Yeah. And it's like coming from America, and I think maybe Australia, you're like, I don't know if it's all like that in Australia, but you just get this like false, you know, because like in America, there's states, there's not countries. So you don't really get the same vibe. But Like when you go to Europe, it's like everything's different. It's like everything you just like. It's like the reverse card in freaking Uno. Like, what just happened? Like, you know, just the way they do things, the way travel is, the way everything's close, the way. I mean, it was just like it was crazy. Just everything, and the racing was so cutthroat. BSB is so savage, and like it's helped me win this championship this year. It's one of the biggest things I attest to my championship this year is BSB is so savage, and the fact that when you roll out, it doesn't matter if it's 30 degrees, 100 degrees, raining, snowing, sleeting, hailing, we're going half second off the lap record, lap 3. Like that's what we're doing. Wow. It just doesn't matter, and they're just hard people, like whatever. I don't know why, but BSB in itself, like I raced one year in Superstock and BSB, and Michael Rudder, I raced him every weekend, and I'm like, dude, how the hell are you this fast still? Like you're like 50 something years old. Like get out of the class. The dude's savage. Like he's still so good. Like, and we had like some of the most epic battles, and I like hated him for it, but at the same time, I'm like, you got to respect a guy that is just that good still, and still can do it. It's like, what? Like how? And like, you know what I mean? Like I'm training my ass off every single day, and this dude is like, not. I don't know what he's doing, but he's not training at the level I am to go and beat him. So I'm like, it's just crazy. It's weird. The tracks are super difficult. Like I always say, this is the number one I say is, if you're not moving forward in the race, you're getting past or you're going backwards. Like, I know that sounds just like, yeah, that's stupid what you just said, but it's like, if you are not holding a lap time or going faster, there is somebody behind you who's going faster. Like you have to, a minimum is just maintain your speed, and you're still looking to get past. Like they're just always moving forward. And if you're not good towards the end of the race, like if you don't have that covered, you could have – I've seen leads of 10 seconds get clawed back. Like people are just really good over there. And things happen. It's more like a motocross race, like Oulton Park, Cadwell. The tracks are so crazy and unique that you make a mistake and it's like a second. It's, it's worth, like you come down into the second chicane at Oulton Park, and if you run wide – and you don't get it gathered up. That whole right, left, right, up the hill, Clay Hill, that could be in 1.2 seconds gone instantly, So everything's so crazy. It's weird, but it's phenomenal. I loved it. I wish I could get every single American person to just go to Europe, just to like live there for 2, 3, 6 months, just to like grasp how good we have it in America. I don't know about Australia, but we've got a really, really good in America. I think a lot of people just kind of get a little too comfortable with how good things are.
I can understand that. We're the same here. We've got an awesome country, and I've traveled to America a lot of times, and I feel the same when I get there. It's an awesome place as well. Like we're pretty lucky in the 2 places we live, really.
Yeah, Australia is one of the places that I would love to go. I befriended Max Whale this year. We're like really good friends. I love him. And I respect what he's doing. Like he's doing what I did in Europe. He's doing it in America, but he's doing it at 19, and he's doing it out of a freaking RV, like a little shitty RV. And, he's doing it on a Cowie, which is the worst bike possible. And he's got second in the championship this year. Dude, I have so much respect for the kid and what they're doing. The Kundu kid. I love it. And he's told me like, hey dude, if you want to come to Australia, you can come hang out, whatever. And so like, that's like my next goal is to try to get to Australia.
He's, be cool to have you here for one thing. He's a promising talent for Australia in flat track, isn't he?
Oh, seriously, for one, to do it without having a team like around you, like he's working on his own bikes. His dad couldn't even come over this year because of COVID, and he was in Australia. So like he had Briar Brownman's dad helping him, and another kid helping him as well. And we were like, dude, I just have tons of support. And I think what really helped him was just having friends. Like the same thing that helped me when I was in Europe was as soon as Danny Buchan became my friend and like got me into all the places because he was such a social butterfly. I started doing well. I got my first podium and I was doing this, that, and the other. Same thing with Max. I think as soon as he started gaining the friends, you gain the confidence and you're just laughing, joking. I mean, he just started opening up. Volusia, race 1, checks out, gone, smokes everybody. On a Cowie, like on a Kawasaki. I rode a Kawasaki. I hated it. I thought it was the worst motorcycle I've ever ridden in dirt track. He's making it work. And so I just think that is super cool. He lived over here the entire year with, no family, out of an RV, and just kind of like moving and grooving. And he never once like looked at what he had and gone like, I don't know. I think that's the Australian way. Cause like he like really embraced, he called his RV Pablo. It was his RV. It was falling apart. He was leaking. It was awesome. But like he like embraced the entire thing. And I'm so stoked that he got second in the championship. And I think he's going to get a really good ride this year. I really believe it.
What happens with the rides over there? Like I heard you talking on the other show. Like when does the rides get announced for next year? And is there a pattern for that? Like say for Max, like are they talking now? Or does it wait till 2021 to start?
No. So everybody's been talking since the banquet, like even before then. Yeah. People even before, like you got like a B Robin, you got certain teams that kind of know that they're going to, kind of keep their same riders, and then everybody else is like on the bandwagon, like who's doing what and, all that. So like Max, I know has been talking to a few people here and there. He's got a lot of interest, of course, especially being singles. Obviously I've been advocating for him as well. For myself, I kind of have like really like only one or two paths to go up. Harley is the biggest one for me, where I stay with the Harley family. I move with latest and we move up, or there's a seat at the factory team, X, Y, and Z. So, it just kind of depends on kind of the situation. But I think things will start to get kind of announced soon because I think not a bunch of people are moving around. There's only so many seats, and I think a lot of them are kind of like – the thing about dirt track is it doesn't take a massive team to move things. You know what I mean? Like in road racing, like there's just these big teams. In dirt track, there's all these little pop-up teams. And then you've got like Factory Indian, Factory Harley, Elatus. You've got Jared Meeses himself. And then you've got like, the 450 teams that have kind of a big entity. Then you've got like Roof Systems, who has Brandon Robinson, and then Estison. So, the Roof Systems, Brandon Robinson deal looks to be pretty like he's probably would likely to stay there. He did a phenomenal job. Unless, something opens up at a factory, I don't see him moving. Same with like Estison. You don't see that team changing. Same with Jared, Factory Harley, you don't really see it changing. You don't see Factory Indian changing that much. Like all those, you don't really see changing. So maybe one or two riders. So I think it'll go fairly quick this year. I think next year is going to be the big, scary one. So I think if we don't make a big push on Harley, I think they're gonna be like, what do we got to do? Kind of deal. And I think Indian, if they keep dominating, is not going to be super well. Like we don't want anybody dominating because that just makes it bad.
No. It's no longer racing at that point, is it? If you get a dominant, it's not racing. You need to have more people in it.
Yeah, I agree.
Tell me this: what do you do to your XG750 compared to say something that comes out? What do you like when you go to testing? How much can you do? What do you do? Things like that.
Yeah, we can do quite a bit. I mean, there's obviously the suspension is probably the biggest thing. We can do different things with the chassis, handlebars, a little bit of that. I mean, a lot of the work we do is, to be honest, is just is mainly wheelbase, gearing, and electronics. And our electronics aren't super sophisticated. Like coming from Motec and stuff like that, they're not super sophisticated. So for myself, it's just mainly how do we get all the power to the ground and then give me as much power as possible. If we have grip, we put in the power. If we don't, we obviously try to take it away and build maps. So that's one of my specialties that I think has helped me this year with this new age of dirt track is the electronics part. But frankly, my XG hasn't been too crazy, and we haven't done that much development. You know, like we haven't put new swing arms, we haven't done new chassis, we haven't done certain things. So I think that we need to continue to work there, and that'll be the kind of the next step. Is we kind of know what we have in the basis, and we kind of need to explore a couple more options, but not get too far away.
Yep, makes sense. It's a beautiful bike.
Yeah, Vance and Hines built a phenomenal bike. They did. It's actually really put together really well.
Yeah, no, from sitting over here, it looks awesome. We've just started our our racing series here for flat track. Like we've done flat track forever. We've just started racing Harleys, so it's called Harley Hooligans in Australia. So the shop that I do my work for, my video stuff, is Gasoline Alley Harley Davidson. We just built a XG750, and we built a 1200 Sportster as well. So we're getting into it more here in the American sort of style of way too. So it's pretty cool to sort of see. We're keeping track of what it's doing and how it's doing, and it's really cool to see.
That's awesome. That's really cool. That's really cool. I think Max showed me a couple crazy things where they run like motocross stuff, suspension, and like like on some half miles. It's wild. I saw him wad like high side so big on a half mile with like his bikes.
There's some bush machinery here, like there really is, and that's Australia. Like we've got some awesome machinery, but some of the things as well as some hacks.
It's so funny, man. I love it. I'm so bummed that they don't do the Troy Bayliss Classic anymore.
Yeah, I reckon you definitely would have been a call up. Like we had Jared here, we had Semi Halbert, we had Jake here, we had Brad Baker, Henry Wiles. We had a good turnout. So
I would have loved to. The track looks so sick.
Yeah, it really was. So it was. It was cool. There's a couple of other big events, and we're really putting more time into it. So who knows what happens in the future too.
Well, if there is, I'd love to come over. I'd love to race. I would love to come to Australia and be a part of that, even if it's just like whatever. We put together some sort of, I don't know, like either event where it's just like maybe not races, but it's just like a 2-day event where we, Max is there, maybe Jack when he's in the off season, because I know he does some dirt track. Me and Jack are pretty decent friends. Like it would be awesome just to go kind of have like a bit of a burn, a bit of a session over there for a couple of days and, have a good time.
Well, mate, hopefully once the world stops being crazy, we can, this sort of stuff might happen. Hey?
I know, man. It stinks, man. Everybody like locking down again, but at the end of the day, we can't do anything about it. We just got to keep trying to build race bikes and keep trying to race. Yeah.
Man, I've kept you for 58 minutes, but I've got a really cool one. Bonneville. Tell me about Bonneville. I've been there as a spectator, and I've been to the place. What was it like to do?
Yeah, it's crazy. It's like it's so big, and like it's so long. Like I rode it on a 650 Kawasaki. We ended up getting it was a wild bike looking, and it was just so slow. Like it just. It was really slow, like 165 mile an hour. Felt like you're like going on the highway at 60. It was crazy. Yeah, it was just kind of a weird deal. Like it's so open. Like you do 100 mile an hour out there on rental cars, and it's like still takes 10 minutes to get across salt flats. Like it's so weird. It's kind of just mind blowing, really. And then like. The salt is weird as well. Like it's all crusty, and it's almost like the desert, but with salt. It's like, it's just, it's super weird and super unique. Like it's crazy because you look and you see all the mirages and whatnot, and they have the place called Floating Mountain, which is it's a huge mountain, but it looks like this big and it's just floating because you can't see the end. It's just, you have no idea how far away it is. It's like, yeah, that's like 5 miles or it's 200 miles. Like, you know what I mean? Like, you just have zero grasp of how far away it is.
It's going there, it blew me away. Just looking at the place, I was like, wow, this is something like I've never ever seen.
Yeah, 1,000%, 1,000%. Dude, I got like 3% battery.
All right, let's end it there. Mate, thank you so much for just being like, as soon as we touch base, like probably mid-season, you've just been so upfront. Let's do this. And you've been really cool about it. And yeah, it shows through your videos, and it obviously shows through chatting, and listen to you on the tank and the other one that I listened to today. So thank you so much for your time, man. I really appreciate, everything you're doing.
Dude, thanks for reaching out and doing it. Like, I love these. I love coming on, talking and vibing. I know it's taken a little bit of time to kind of get things locked in a little bit, but I think it's just a time change. But I'm stoked to be on here. I'm stoked that flat track is growing in Australia. I'd love to come. And listen, if we continue and we get a good ride, whatever, and we want to do a follow up, be my guest, reach out anytime. And I hope all your fans and whatnot continue to watch American Flat Track, and hopefully we can see you guys in Australia soon.
Thanks, man. You take care of yourself, and we'll catch up soon, eh?
All right. Awesome.